You saw that Paul Hunter report and the horrors that some of these kids and these victims have experienced, and yet Israel maintains that that UN-run school had Hamas rockets in the basement. So what steps should be taken to ease the humanitarian crisis? What will it take to reach a ceasefire? How do you justify attacks like that? This is this human shields argument versus the civilian casualties and the human cost here. Incredibly difficult situation. What's the Canadian government's approach on that? MPs Costas Menegakis, Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Citizenship and Immigration, Guy Caron, the NDP Deputy International Trade Critic, is in Rimouski, and in studio, Liberal Critic for Natural Resources, Jeff Regan. Look, I know everybody is horrified by what we're seeing in this conflict between Hamas and Israel. But Mr. Menegakis, let me start with you. The government has repeatedly said Israel has the right to defend itself, and all parties have also said the same thing, calling Hamas a terrorist organization. And yet, when you see the humanitarian crisis that the Ban Ki-moon at the UN has called appalling when a school is shelled, what's the Canadian government's response to that?
Well, we're obviously, it is appalling. It's horrible to see the result of these actions that have been started by Hamas. They continue to they're very aggressive, offensive, terrorist rockets, firing them right into Israel. They continue to hide. They continue to use schools and homes, private property as launch sites for these rockets. The only way to stop this, quite frankly, is to find them, to disarm them, so that peace can come back to the region.
No,
Everybody there has the right to live peacefully.
Okay, I understand that. But let's get practical. Does the Canadian government have any words to say to the Israeli government when, if indeed it has shelled this school, and as Paul Hunter said, that allegation is still up in the air, but if it indeed has shelled this school, and the UN believes this is the second school that's been shelled with civilian casualties, is there any way to justify the shelling of that, even if rockets were being kept there? Where is the Canadian government on, or should Israel use more discretion and not do that?
Well, what we've heard so far is that Israel has said there was a conflict specifically in the area there. They were engaging Hamas terrorists. We're not certain exactly what hit the school, but I will say this: Hamas needs to stop. Innocent civilians are dying. We're very concerned about that. Certainly the international community is concerned about that. Israel does have a right to defend itself. They're a sovereign nation. They're a democratic nation, very similar to Canada. If we were to be recipients of rockets coming into our land, to our property, into our homes from a terrorist organization, Canadians would have every expectation
but, sir, to be fair,
that we would defend
ourselves. Yes, but international law also guides your. But international law also says you can't simply, the right to defend doesn't also trump other international law that says you can't attack or hurt civilians. You have to restrain. Do you call on Israel to show some restraint in certain circumstances?
Well, we've always maintained that Israel has the right to defend itself. We are calling on the international community to put as much pressure as possible for Hamas to be disarmed. This is absolutely horrendous what they are doing. They are using their Palestinian civilians, innocent people, as shields. It is absolutely horrible.
Okay, Mr. Caron, where are you on this? I know there's a broader conflict, but let's talk about this situation, which is one of the critical moments today in this conflict. Where are you on, and your party on this school?
Well, this isn't the first situation. As you said, it's the fourth UN building that's been hit. And as you also mentioned, there is an obligation to show restraint when there can be significant civilian casualties in such a conflict. So obviously Hamas is at fault because they continue throwing those rockets, and they also rejecting the ceasefire attempts and the proposal made by Egypt. On the other side, Israel has actually engaged within Gaza, which is a very dense population, and it's very obvious that there will be such casualties if the actions that are taken are not measured. So in the sense that Israel is right now in a situation of power within Gaza, it has to actually demonstrate it can actually care for the civilian population. People of Gaza are not Hamas, and they are suffering right now, being stuck between a rock and a hard place.
So what do you do? What do you do if indeed Israel says these are human shields, that hospitals and schools and mosques are being used as weapon depots? Okay, that's their claim. What, in your view, what kind of response is justified?
Well, first you need to ensure that the area that you want to take action on, if there is such a depot, you have to make sure that there is as little civilians as possible. And Israel actually has said that in some instances it will actually contact the people in such an area to tell them that they have to evacuate because it will be targeted. In this situation, I don't know if this is what happened, but obviously when there are such large buildings that are or that can be used as a shelter, we're talking about hospitals and schools, you need to be twice and three times as cautious because of the possible civilian casualties. And I'd like to get an assurance from Israel that they are making sure that there is no civilians in there, or there is as few as possible. Obviously, this is a very complex situation in which you want to try to limit the ability of Hamas to actually send those rockets. On the other side, you have a civilian population that's taken hostage.
All right, Mr. Regan, where are you on this?
Well, look, our deep concern is for the people who are being affected by this. My sympathies and our deep condolences go to the people affected by these civilian casualties in Gaza. We're horrified by these civilian casualties, by people dying and being injured there. We're also, concerned about the suffering under rocket attacks of Israelis. It's the people we have to think about, and that's the reason we've been consistently urging a ceasefire, and we've been supporting the efforts of international actors like the Palestinian Authority, Egypt, the U.S., the UN, who've all been working hard to try to achieve a ceasefire. This is really about the broader battle here, the broader conflict.
But the broader conflict can't get away from the details of what's happened on the ground every day.
That's absolutely. But unless you bring the broader conflict to an end now, ceasefire on all sides, you're going to have, it seems, situations like this which are just horrifying.
Costas Menegakis, Guy Caron, Jeff Regan, I appreciate your time on two different issues, and we've been covering this all week: the Ukrainian situation, the downing of MH17, and of course the Israel-Gaza conflict that's going on right now. I appreciate you staying around for both of them, all three of you.